Hi everyone! Today I've got another process video with a layout I've put together using 6x6 inch paper pads. This design is based on a sketch that I had created a few months ago. I've been doing a series of sketches that feature shapes. I absolutely love working with different shapes, and oftentimes when I'm in kind of a rut, I'll turn to a shape design to get that creative brain flowing again. So I thought it would be fun to create a series of sketches with shapes making up most of the design. So far, I have sketches with circles, squares, hexagons, and triangles. And to me, these sketches are so much fun. And just because they are shape heavy doesn't mean that they are complicated or time consuming. This layout and sketch are a good example of that, and you'll see that in this video. If you are interested in checking out these shape sketches, I'll link to them down below in the video description. To start this layout, I selected 8 different patterns from this Honeybee Stamps paper pad, and this is one of my favorites of theirs. I love the blue and yellow color combos and how well they work for boyish themed layouts. I cut each of the 8 patterns in half diagonally to create the triangle pieces for my background. And I told you all it was super easy. Shape designs are not always complicated. I tend to be a perfectionist when it comes to lining things up and the spacing between elements. So I used my OmniGrid ruler to draw a line for each paper so I could use that to help me adhere the triangle pieces evenly spaced and straight. And this made the process of adhering them really quick and easy. I had a few pencil lines peeking out, so I erased those, and then I used my fingernail to distress the edge of each triangle. I always like the little bit of dimension and detail that adds to the edges of the papers. Next, I'm going to add my 2 photos along the bottom edge of the triangles. I'm using 2 3x3 inch photos with a small white mat. With my photos adhered, I am now going to add the pencil lines for stitching. I always start my stitching from a pencil line, and I like to do that after I have added my photos, so I'm not stitching in areas that are going to be covered. And that OmniGrid ruler really comes in handy for this part. After those pencil lines are drawn, I start piercing the holes with a paper piercing tool. I have a foam mat under my layout to absorb the needle at the end of the tool as I punch it through the paper. I usually shoot for piercing my holes between 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch apart. When all of the holes are pierced, I can start my stitching. I'm using 3 strands of a dark blue embroidery floss. I most often use 3 strands instead of 6 because it's so much easier to pull the thread through the holes, and you really can't tell a huge difference between stitching with 3 versus stitching with all 6 strands. If you stitch but find that when you hold the paper you tend to wrinkle or warp it, I recommend trying to use 3 strands. It will be so much easier, and you can hold the paper with a lighter grip and eliminate that wrinkling that can happen. I decided at this point that I wanted to add some paint splatters. I felt like it would be a fun complement to the happy and playful photos. Usually I would do this at the beginning, but this was something that I didn't plan on doing at first. I didn't want to get any paint on my photos or the pattern papers, so I used some scrap pieces of paper and covered the areas I didn't want paint on so I could splatter away without getting any on the photos or triangles. Next, I'm going to add my title pieces. I use 2 word die cuts and then a phrase piece in the middle of them, and I adhere them all with foam adhesive. For my embellishments, I decided to use a mix of circles, rings, and stars in place of the flowers on the sketch. I am creating two clusters, one in the bottom right corner and one in the top left corner. Most of these circles and rings are from 49th and Market. And then I also use some glitter foam stars and circles from American Crafts and some wooden circle embellishments from Cocoa Vanilla. Anytime I'm creating a cluster, I like to use a variety of sizes, textures, and dimension. The mix of chipboard, glitter, foam, and wood gives me a good variety of textures, and using foam adhesive is always a great way to add dimension to the design. And at this point, my cat, Minnie, wanted to make an appearance, so I let her come in and have a little camera time. She is the sweetest cat, and she loves to come hang out in my scrapbook room, especially if she hears someone else in here talking to me. Now, the last detail I added was a few punch stars and my journaling strips. I think it's easy to look at a design like this with the triangle background and assume that it's complicated and time consuming. But as you can see, it was made quite easily by cutting those squares in half diagonally. And you could adjust this design to work with different sizes of triangles as well. Just start with whatever size of square you want and then cut it in half diagonally. It's really, really easy. Using triangles like this is always a fun option for using 6x6 papers. It's as easy as cutting the paper in half diagonally, and then you have so many options for using those triangles. A design like this can go across the layout like I did here, or you could go up and down, or you can arrange 4 triangles into a large square background, or you can take 2 triangles and create a smaller square. There are lots of ways to play around with these triangles and 6x6 papers. If you enjoy using 6x6 papers, be sure to check out our selection at scrapbookgeneration.com. We've got tons to choose from and from a variety of companies. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.